Okay, we're going to diagnose this poem for the first time, much like you would on the exam. We haven't seen the answers, we haven't taught it 10 times over, and, well, there's a good chance we'll make a mistake. So let's take a look, sit over our shoulder, and see if you learn anything. Let's get started. Bird Talk by Carl Sandburg. And now, when the branches were beginning to be heavy, it was the time when they once had said, "This is the beginning of summer." The shrilling of the frogs was not so shrill as in the first weeks after the broken winter. The birds took their hops and zigzags, a little more anxious. A home is a home, worms are worms. The yellow spreads of the dandelions and buttercups reached across the green pastures. Okay, so already I see this is a change of seasons in this first stanza. We're beginning summer, and the poet is describing what happens during that. Tee-wee and tee-wee came on the breezes, and the grackles chuzzled their syllables. I assume those are the birds. And it was the leaves with a strong, soft wind over them that talked most of all. So the leaves are talking, they're being personified, and said more than any others, though speaking the fewest words. Okay, so how do leaves talk? Well, it was the green leaves trickling out the gaunt nowhere of winter, out on the gray, hungry branches. It was the leaves on the branches beginning to be heavy, who said, as they said one time before, "This is the beginning of summer." So there we have repetition. This is the beginning of summer. Usually repetition is there for emphasis, so this is clearly a strong idea in the first stanza, and it seems to be what it's about. Also, there's reference to one time before. So obviously this happens every beginning of the summer. Maybe this is just a general description of what happens over and over. We start now, but then we say one time before at the end as well. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the second stanza. We shall never blame the birds who come where the river and the road make the grand crossing. That's in caps. And talk there, sitting in circles, talking bird talk. If they ask in their circles as to who is here and as to who is not here and who used to be here, okay, that's a little convoluted. Or if instead of counting up last year as against this year, they count up this year as against next year. So instead, that's an alternative. So an alternative to counting up last year is they count up this year and next year. And have their bird chatter about who is here this year, who won't be here next year. Okay, so obviously there's talk about the past, but their focus is really more on the present and the future. Not sure why the birds are being blamed. We shall never blame the birds. Again, this is repeated, beginning to end. So that repetition could be emphasis, a core idea. Not sure why the birds would be blamed for coming back again and again to the same place. Or who's blaming them? We shall never blame the birds. I don't know who we is. Okay, let's go on to the third stanza. If I, well, here we have I versus we, so it's first person singular. If I have put your face among leaf faces, child, or if I have put your voice among bird voices, blame me no more than the blue jays. Okay, so each stanza has a main idea. The first one is describing the beginning of summer. The second one is someone whose point of view is we, and then the third stanza I. And why are they blaming the birds? I don't know. Exactly who is we and I don't know either. So there are parts about this poem I'm just not, I don't know. Somebody will probably write in and say, oh, this is who the we and the I is, and I might say, of course, in retrospect. Right now, I don't understand this. I look at this poem as a little harder than the cross purposes from an earlier period, where the bridge and the river were personified. There it was pretty clear. Here, I don't know everything about this poem. It's a little harder, in my opinion. So at this point, I've outlined stanza by stanza what I think the poem is about, and I've tried to identify who's speaking in each part as well. I have the main topic. It's about changing seasons to the summer in particular. So with that, armed with at least that information, let's try to tackle the questions.